Imagine a world holding its breath. 40 days had passed since the earth itself trembled, since a stone was rolled away, revealing an empty tomb. Whispers turned to shouts, and fear turned to wonder. A man, who was more than just a man, had conquered death. Jesus was back among his friends, his followers, his family. But these 40 days were not an ending, they were a beginning. A final lesson before the ultimate departure. He walked with them, not as a ghost, but as a living, breathing teacher. He ate with them, breaking bread just as he had before. He spoke with them, not of sorrow, but of a coming promise. He opened their minds, showing them how centuries of prophecies, written in ancient scrolls, all pointed to this very moment. To his suffering, his resurrection, and now, to what must come next. He was preparing them, forging their doubt into unshakable faith. He told them, "Do not leave Jerusalem, but wait for the gift my Father promised, which you have heard me speak about." What was this gift? They couldn't fully grasp it yet. Their minds were still fixed on earthly things. They saw their beloved teacher, a leader of immense power, and they thought, "Is this it? Is this the time you will restore the kingdom to our people?" They imagined a new king, a new throne, a new era of earthly glory. Jesus looked at them with profound love, a love that understood their limited vision. He gently corrected them. "It is not for you to know the times or dates the Father has set by his own authority." He was shifting their perspective from the ground beneath their feet to the heavens above. He continued, "But you will receive power when the Holy Spirit comes on you, and you will be my witnesses in Jerusalem, and in all Judea and Samaria, and to the ends of the earth." His words painted a picture far grander than any earthly kingdom. Not a restoration of old borders, but an expansion to the entire world. Their mission wasn't to reclaim a piece of land, but to win the hearts of all humanity. They were to be his voice, his hands, his heart, to every corner of the globe. This was the final command, the Great Commission. And with it, the stage was set for the most incredible farewell in history. He led them out to the vicinity of Bethany, to a gentle slope on the Mount of Olives. The sun was warm, the air was still. It was a familiar place, a place of prayer and quiet conversation. He looked at each of their faces, faces etched with awe, confusion, and a deep, abiding love. He saw Peter, the rock, bold and impulsive. He saw John, the beloved disciple, full of quiet devotion. He saw Mary Magdalene, whose life he had completely transformed. He saw them all, his little flock. Then, as he stood among them, he raised his hands. It wasn't a gesture of command or power, but one of blessing. A final, fatherly benediction over his children. A profound peace settled over the small group. In that moment, everything went silent. The rustling of leaves, the distant city sounds, everything faded away. There was only the presence of their Lord and the weight of his final blessing. And then, it began. Slowly, majestically, he began to rise from the ground. It wasn't a sudden launch, but a graceful, deliberate ascent. His feet left the dusty earth, and he was lifted up. Their eyes were locked on him, wide with disbelief and wonder. Gasps escaped their lips. This was not a vision, not a dream, it was real. He was ascending, going up, right before their very eyes. He didn't simply vanish. He continued to rise, his figure framed against the brilliant blue sky. As he ascended, a cloud, not of storms, but of pure, radiant light, moved to meet him. It was a cloud of glory, a sign of the divine presence. It enveloped him, and in a final, breathtaking moment, it hid him from their sight. He was gone. The space where he had been was now just empty sky. They stood there, necks craned, eyes fixed on that spot in the heavens, silence, disbelief, awe, their minds reeled. What had just happened? He had been taken from them, received into the sky itself. The one who had walked the earth, who had calmed storms and healed the sick, was now gone from their sight, returned to the Father from whence he came. A profound sense of loss began to mingle with their astonishment. Suddenly, as they stared into the empty sky, they realized they were not alone. Two figures, men dressed in robes of dazzling white, stood beside them. They seemed to appear out of thin air, their presence calm and reassuring. The disciples were startled, turning their gazes from the heavens back to the earth. The angelic messengers spoke, their voices clear and steady, cutting through the disciples' daze. "Men of Galilee," they said, "why do you stand here looking into the sky? Their question was gentle, not a rebuke. It was a call back to reality, back to the mission. They continued, "This same Jesus, who has been taken from you into heaven, will come back in the same way you have seen him go into heaven." Hope, that single promise pierced through their confusion and sorrow. He will come back. This wasn't a final goodbye, but a temporary separation. The ascension was not an end, but a transition. His departure was the necessary step for the next phase of God's plan. His physical presence was leaving so that his spiritual presence, through the promised Holy Spirit, could be everywhere, in everyone who believed. The words of the angels echoed in their hearts, "He will come back." This promise became the fuel for everything that followed. It turned their grief into resolve, their confusion into purpose. They understood now. Their job was not to stand gazing at the sky, waiting. Their job was to get to work. Their king had not abandoned them, he had promoted them. He had entrusted them with his legacy. With a new sense of purpose, they turned their backs on the empty sky and made their way back to Jerusalem. They weren't returning in sorrow, but with great joy. They understood the ascension for what it was, a coronation. Jesus, the obedient Son, had completed his earthly mission. He had humbled himself, even to death on a cross. And now, the Father had exalted him to the highest place, giving him the name that is above every name. His obedience had led to ultimate glory. Back in the city, they gathered together, constantly in prayer, united in purpose. They were waiting, just as he had told them to. Waiting for the promised power from on high. The ascension was the final act of his earthly ministry, but it was the starting gun for the mission of the church. He had passed the torch. Now, it was their turn to carry his light to the ends of the earth, fueled by the memory of his life, the power of his resurrection, the glory of his ascension, and the promise of his return. His story was now their story to tell. And they would not be silent. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more stories that shape our world.